All right, ready to level up that DeFi game? Today, we're diving deep into Pendle Finance.
Pendle Finance, yeah, they're doing some really interesting stuff with the Pendle. It's all about giving you more control over your yield-generating assets.
And who doesn't want more control, right? So
Yep.
we're talking about potentially maximizing those returns. We're getting into the nitty-gritty with their paper, vePENDLE.pdf, straight from the source.
Yeah, and what's cool about Pendle is they're not just about basic yield farming. We're talking yield tokenization. And
Make sure to break that down for me.
it's like imagine taking those yield-bearing assets and like splitting them up. You've got your future yield, those are your YT yield tokens, and then your initial capital, those are PT, principal tokens.
So instead of just like waiting for that yield, you've got these tokens you can actually play around with.
Exactly, and that's where their PPAMM comes in. It's like a marketplace.
Like a trading floor for yield, kind of.
You got it. Buy, sell, trade those PTs and YTs. Need your initial investment back faster? Sell your PT. Want to double down on future yield? Grab more YT.
I see, you're calling the shots. But let's get real. How does Pendle keep the lights on? Any platform needs revenue, right?
They got that covered. Two main ways. YT fees, a small percentage from the yield generated, and then swap fees every time someone trades on that AMM we talked about.
Okay, makes sense. But what really caught my eye is this vePENDLE thing. Like, it's a way to get even more out of Pendle, become more than just a user, right?
Yeah, vePENDLE's where things get really interesting. You're not just participating, you can gain some serious influence.
All right, so let's dive into this vePENDLE thing. What's it all about, and how can it give users an edge?
It's actually pretty elegant. You lock up your Pendle tokens,
Right.
and the longer you lock them up, the more vePENDLE you get. Think of it like earning points, for being committed to Pendle.
Okay, so I'm building up these vePENDLE points. What do they actually get me? What's the payoff here?
That's where the magic happens. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of those benefits in a sec. So you've got your vePENDLE, right? You've locked up your Pendle. What this does is it gets you two big things. First off, boosted rewards. Remember those YT fees? You get a bigger chunk of them.
Bigger chunk, always good. But I think you said there was a second perk.
Yeah, and this is a big one. It gives you governance rights. You actually get a say in how Pendle is run, like how those Pendle incentives we were talking about, how they get spread around the different markets on their platform. You vote on that.
Okay, so it's like you're not just along for the ride anymore, you're actually steering the ship a bit.
Exactly.
But hold on, this all sounds pretty sweet for the users. What's in it for Pendle?
See, that's the cool part. It's mutually beneficial. Remember we talked about their revenue streams, the YT fees, the swap fees? Well, they take a portion of that and put it into what they call a developer fund.
Okay, so they're reinvesting to make the platform even better. Smart.
Right. And that attracts more users, which benefits everyone.
Makes sense. But let's rewind a bit to those voting rights for a sec. You said users can vote on how those Pendle incentives are used, but how does that actually work?
So each week, there's this set amount of Pendle set aside for rewards. This is all controlled by what they call the global reward speed. Users with vePENDLE, they vote on how much goes to each Pendle market. And get this, the more vePENDLE you have, the more weight your vote carries.
So there's a real incentive there to build up your vePENDLE, be strategic about it, put your weight behind the markets you think are going to pop off.
You got it. You're not just earning yield, you're thinking long-term, shaping the whole ecosystem.
Now you're talking my language. But you mentioned this global reward speed and that it's controlled by governance. What's that all about?
Good catch. So right now, the Pendle team, they manage that, making sure things stay balanced. But the plan is to eventually make it more decentralized. So vePENDLE holders would actually have a say in the overall rate those Pendle rewards get distributed.
Wow, okay. So it's not just which markets get the rewards, but the whole system of how much gets given out. That's a lot of power to the people.
It's the future of DeFi, if you ask me.
Definitely seems that way. But let's not get lost in the sauce here. We got to bring it back down to earth. We've talked a lot about the potential of vePENDLE, but for the average user, what are we actually talking about in terms of rewards? How does this all translate into actual gains?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And we'll dig into the nuts and bolts of those rewards right after this.
All right, so we've covered a ton of ground here, from yield stripping all the way to vePENDLE and its potential, but let's bring it all home.
Yeah.
For someone listening, what's the bottom line? What kind of rewards are we actually talking about with Pendle?
So when it comes to rewards, there's two main avenues you'll see. First, those Pendle incentives we've been talking about, right? Providing liquidity to those markets, that's where you earn them.
Right, and the vePENDLE boosts those.
Exactly. The more vePENDLE, the bigger your share of the rewards from those markets. It's like a bonus multiplier just for being plugged into the system.
Love a good multiplier. But you said there were two types. What's the other way to cash in?
Okay, so on top of the Pendle incentives, some Pendle markets, they'll actually give you rewards in other tokens too.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
Usually it's tokens that are native to whatever protocol your underlying assets are coming from. Double dipping on rewards, essentially.
Now that's what I call efficiency. But I gotta imagine, with all these different rewards, Pendle's gotta have some system for tracking it all, making sure things stay fair. How do they handle that?
That's where this active balance thing comes in. Think of it like your own personal reward scorecard on Pendle. It considers your LP tokens, that's your base level, and then adds a boost on top based on how much vePENDLE you've got working for you.
So more vePENDLE, higher active balance, bigger slice of the reward pie.
You got it. Although there is one thing people need to remember. It's not enough to just have that vePENDLE sitting there. You have to actually broadcast it to the system.
Broadcast it, like tell Pendle to recognize
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Like hitting refresh so they know to factor in your full voting power and, of course, your boosted rewards.
So you gotta be proactive, make sure you're getting everything you're entitled to.
Right. And I think that's a big takeaway here. With Pendle, you're not just a passive investor. You've got the power to make strategic decisions, get those rewards flowing, especially when you understand how to leverage vePENDLE.
It's about taking control of your DeFi game, really maximizing those opportunities.
100%.
Well, we've covered a ton of ground today, explored the ins and outs of Pendle finance and this whole vePENDLE system. But as always, I want to leave our listeners with something to chew on. Knowing all this, what are some strategies folks can use to really squeeze the most out of Pendle? That's something to explore as you dive deeper into this whole ecosystem.
Definitely worth thinking about. And hey, there's a whole world of DeFi out there to explore. Start with Pendle Finance, see where it takes you. You never know what you might discover.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Knowledge is power, folks. Until next time, happy yield hunting, everyone.